My name is James J. Quinn. I'm originally from Brooklyn, New York, and I moved into Connecticut, and now we're in Maryland. I was born in Kings County Hospital in 1927. I have two sisters and one brother. Okay, it started when I was 15, I believe. I went to the Marines, and I wanted to join the Marines. So while I was there, I was given information, and they got the information that I had lost my mother when I was like 11, and I lost my father when I was like 13, and which means I'm an orphan. And there happened to be a person standing there when we finished. If the officer in the Marines said I would have to gain some weight in order to. He knew I was young, 15, but I was putting like I was 17 at that point because I was using my brother's name, which would be Arthur Lawrence, rather than James J. When the interview was finished, I was told to gain weight, and he'd give me a hand job, might say, come back and see us when you're heavy and bigger. Well, it just so happened I was on my way out, and a gentleman stepped up to me and said, "Well, you don't have to gain any weight." He says, "Come down to my gym." He says, "And we'll give you what you need as far as handling yourself." And I wound up. It was a martial arts, martial arts. So I came there, and I was working with the martial arts for quite a while, maybe about 10 months at that point. And they came and said, one of them said, I was 6 instructors there at the time, and one of them said, "Why don't you join the Merchant Marine? Rather than waiting for 2 years to be, to get into the Marines, you can join the Marines at 16. So I said, "Oh, it's Merchant Marine." So I said, "Oh, fine, that sounds like a good idea." And that's how I got in on the Merchant Marine. Sheepshead Bay, there was the Maritime Maritime Association, and because of the training, I got into the boxing team, and I was boxing there in the Maritime in Sheepshead Bay. It came in handy, the training that I had prior to going in. And then let's see, I went got to finish the training, and I went to Charleston, Massachusetts. Got on a coal burner, the Glen White.
Where did you go on that? Do you remember where?
That was a local. It was went to Virginia and back. That's all that was as far as that. And
I ask you what department you were in?
Not the deck department, the engine department. When I joined that, I said, well, I'll get the engine department. Maybe I'll learn a trade besides, So that's how I happened to be a coal passer. Pretty tough job. Yeah. You were on for about an hour and a half, and then you get a break for about 40 minutes, and you're back in the coal. And nothing but shoveling coal.
Black gang.
Yes, it's a tough job. Take a shower, you had to do it very slowly because you had the shale on you. And the shale is rushing down, moving down your arm if you're too fast. As you actually get scraped. So it's a toughie. From there, we with the Maritime Union and NMU, I was in that. Went to, I forget which one. I was on the Orland Loomis, the Josiah Tatnell, and the Brandeis. There were C3s, the Liberty ships, and but I went one trip to the in the engine room, and then I went to deck, and from there worked up to be a able-bodied seaman there. We went through Africa. We stopped in a few places, and the final one was Cairo. We went to Cairo, and that was the north. That's when the north of the African campaign was just finishing up there. They were then moving into, thinking about moving into Italy. going across the Mediterranean. We did that trip, came back, did another one to covered the islands, Great Britain, Ireland, and Scotland, England. We hit there. From what I understand at that time, they had the D-Day invasion while I was there, and on the way back, from what I understand, they was the Germans. The idea that they were given was that we're going to make an invasion to Le Havre and that area, right across. They faked them out in England. I was at home at this time, and they fake them out. They had the Panzer Division waiting for the invasion. They hit the invasion in Omaha Beach, and when they hit Normandy and D-Day, Panzer Division, of course, moved. When the Panzer Division moved, that's when they went from the place from England where they thought they were going to be and hit Le Havre, and that's where we hit, right there. So it was quite a good move. So we followed up on the D-Day invasion with the equipment and everything that they needed from there. We had there were tanks on the decks, a lot of jeeps and crates. The holes were loaded with ammunition. Every trip they're all loaded with ammunition. The tankers, of course, have the oil. You know that a tanker goes up, you can see it in the distance. I have no involvement in any of the action. I'm not making any complaints. But I've seen the explosions or the lights. You can tell when a merchant ammunition ship could go up, or you could see if it's a tanker, just by the smoke alone.
You were in convoys?
Oh yes, the convoys. The fear was always the submarines. The German submarines were having a field day. Some convoys were maybe 200 ships, and from what I understand, very few of them got through. You're constantly watching for submarines. You're always on the lookout for submarines.
You had Naval Armed Guard on board?
We had, well, in the beginning we didn't. We had just ourselves. I was assigned to a 20 millimeter, and I trained in the maritime service. They had that with the 20 millimeter, but no action. I was lucky, very fortunate.
But when Naval Armed Guard did come on board,
they did come on. Yes, they come in. When we would leave or left the States, they came down from Canada with the Canadian corvettes. Would be like a small destroyer escort. That would be the convoy so far out. And once they went certain far, they just turned around back. So we were not completely protected in that sense. That's also when the convoys were sort of the departing.
What was probably the most difficult thing you remember from your mariner days during World War II?
The most difficult position, it's not a war position, it's just something that happened on a ship. Yeah. We hit a storm, but I think it was off Nova Scotia, I'm not sure. I think it was Halifax. And very, very high waves, ships. We were assigned to go up on the deck to see if we can secure the barrels. We should have 55-gallon drums of oil up on the boat deck, and a couple of them broke loose and broke them oil all over the floor, the deck. And make a long story short, while I'm there, I'm slipping around. I slide to the end, over the side of the ship, grab the fish rail, the little fish rail there, grabbed the hold of that, and it was hanging. The boat was loose, the lifeboat was loose, so right behind me. So as soon as I hit that, I went down. I was actually over the side. When it rode the other way, I went all the way across the deck and almost went out the other side, but I...
Who's that down there flying around?
I mean, it's not a war story, but it happens.
It's dangerous to be out
It
there?
happens. The bosun had to have his ribs.
Broken ribs.
Yeah, broken ribs, cracked his ribs.
So finish me up with the war and your time during the war, where you end up going and where you finally get out after the war's over.
I went and I joined the Navy.
Tell me when this happened.
Let's see. And again, that'll be about a year later. Yeah,
So it's still
I
during
was,
the
I was,
war?
it was still the war. Yeah, the war was still on. I joined the Navy, and that was an entirely different experience altogether. But in relationship to what I learned when I went to the martial arts, when I went into the Navy, I started out anyway. Well, I started out as a seaman, but I was striking for a specialist in athletics.
Well, where
Because
were
I
you
had-
stationed in the Navy? What happened to you?
I went to Camp Perry, and Camp Perry was an athletic place, and I met a lot of the different professional people because they were training Joe Louis and people like that, and the football players, and then went to regular training again as a seaman, boot training in Camp Perry. Went home. When I came back, they put me on ship's company rather than shipping me out. Because I had met a few people with the martial arts, they were impressed with what I had, and they came to. I did one of the demonstrations with one of the instructors, and he said, "Wow, amazing." So he said, he brought me to Lieutenant Commander Chantos. I think it was Lieutenant Chantos. And he said, this is what the Japanese are doing down in the islands. So they put me on a special training as a training person for a while. And then from there I went to, I wanted to get on a destroyer when I first joined. My brother was on a destroyer. He was on a destroyer in the Pacific. And I wanted to get on the Pacific. So I told him that was what Washington knew, from Washington when I first joined. And went to camp, I went to Naval Air Station from there. And also, got on the boxing team.
Which Naval Air Station?
Jacksonville Naval Air Station. Went there. And also got on the boxing team there, and was also giving karate and jiu-jitsu demonstrations and so forth there. Well, as I said, I was in Jacksonville, Florida, a Naval Air Station, and I was on the boxing team, and they had the Golden Gloves came up, 47 or 48. Well, anyway, I was a lightweight, and went in to give it a crack, and walked away with the lightweight championship, a tri-state championship for Alabama, Georgia, and Florida.
Fantastic.
Was there quite a while, and finally, about 10 months before getting out, I went on a minority cruise. You sign up until you're 21. So that was about almost 4 years. And finally, when I was going to get out, they said, "Okay, you're on a destroyer."
You're gonna get what you want.
I got what I want. In other words, stay.
Yeah. Well,
Stay.
was that trying to make you sign back up? Is
Yeah,
that what it
yeah,
was?
yeah. They say maybe sign up. I mean, at that point, they ruined a good thing I had going very well, very nicely. Yeah.
Right.
I still had another year to do.
Okay.
So that's why for the year they're going to give me.
All right.
So they put me on. I went on the SARS field, and that was out of Key West. We were stationed at Key West, and from there, we just did a cruise around the Caribbean,
Remember
and
the ship
and they were working on what they call hedgehogs. No more tank explosives going in the barrels. They had these hedgehogs shooting out. So now the submarine. We were working with the submarines, and we were cruising. We were supposed to be hunting around with them. That what I did for about a year.
Finished up with that.
Finished up with that.
And where were you? Where did you get out at? What year?
That was in Florida, Key West. That should have been 48. So the war ended while I was in the Navy, but I started while it was still in there.
How did your brother fare in the Pacific? How did he do?
He was an entirely different thing. He was sitting in his son's. This is long after the war was over. We're sitting in his son's basement watching television, and they have Victory at Sea. Something will probably Victory at Sea, something in the Pacific or something, and we see up there they're saying, and Arthur Quinn is on the raft. Here he is on the raft on the TV. Now we didn't even know that he had done anything during the war. We just knew. We just knew that he was over there. So anyway, he's on the raft and he's pulling guys in. He was on the Brain. They were hit by the kamikazes. A lot of guys lost.
It was rough in the Pacific with those kamikazes. Merchant ships, Navy ships.
And he was in the water quite a while. He found some kind of a float. And one of them was supposed to be his legs or something. Would take with sharks all over the place.
So let's talk about something about what's about to happen for the Memorial Day 2025 and the wreath laying in Arlington. How do you feel about what's about to happen and being a part of it?
Well, I think it's appropriate that for all the men who had been lost, and so many, a great portion of them were lost in maritime. People weren't even aware of what merchant marine. What was that? And yeah, I think it's a privilege. I'm lucky. Nothing happened to me.
American Merchant Marine veterans.
Finally see the merchant marine, they need ships. I mean, not just warships. They need equipment ships running around the world. 73% of all the ships, the merchant ships in the world, is in China. 73%. That's a small percentage for them. We're only somewhat, what is it, 6% or something? Very small percentage, and that's exactly what we need. 2 days ago, I was awarded the medals. I had never applied for it, never, as the years went by, didn't even think about it. And I was really greatly honored yesterday. Sean Duffy, he's the transportation secretary. He was there, and he was one of the ones who made the presentation. Hell of a nice guy. And that was it. I'm very, very proud of it now that I've gotten it.
Yeah, you should be. You deserve it. Yeah. Thank you. Can I get a heave ho?
Heave ho. Would you want me to sing it?
If you could, I'd take it.
Heave ho, my lads, heave ho. It was a long, long way to go. It's a long, long pull with the hatches full, braving the wind, braving the sea, fighting the treacherous foe. Heave ho, my lads, heave ho. Let the sea roll high or low. We can cross any ocean, sail any river. Give us the goods and we'll deliver. Damn the submarine. We're the men of the merchant marine.
Heave ho!
Heave ho!